Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur Podcast. Today, my guest is Laura Hoorweg. Laura is an international spiritual counselor and clairvoyant medium. She has a laser-like way of seeing relevant details in all the areas of your life, and she's perceptive in ways that feel like your own deepest knowing. Her passion is to empower people to live their lives in the most authentic and passionate way possible, aligning with their own divine mission and developing their own spiritual gifts. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Bev. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you about all of your gifts and your abilities and how you use those tools to help other people. My first question, though, is Um, when did you first realize that there is more to the world than what we can see and touch in the physical reality?
Well, I guess it was actually, I had some inklings when I was a child because I used to talk about things and everything, and I thought everybody could do and see and hear things. And people would give me weird looks or they'd make strange comments. So I knew that not everybody could. So I kind of shut up for quite some time. And when I really kind of clearly had my first deeply personal experience was when I was about 15. I was out climbing and rappelling up in northern Ontario, and we were taking a rest break on the top of the cliff. And I was out at the edge of the cliff looking out, and all you can see is up in northern Ontario, and all you can see is lakes and trees, and it's just beautiful. You can see for miles and miles and miles. Feel the song. Yeah, that
I
song.
feel song coming on.
So what happened was all of a sudden, without any warning, it was like the only way I can describe it is I literally shot up out of my body. So my spirit, my soul, my energy, whatever you want to call it, it was definite out of body experience. I shot up out of my body. All of a sudden, I was looking down on my compatriots and my climbing instructors sitting on the cliff. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like really high up in the sky. And now I can see even further. I can see for tens of miles and miles and miles and miles. And I thought, oh, this is great. And I was just kind of getting into it. And all of a sudden, again, that feeling like just whoosh. And I went up again. And this time I found myself literally outside of the earth. And I was looking down on the earth like the astronauts. I'm going to date myself, but I grew up when they were doing all the moon landings and everything. And it was the first time we actually saw the earth from outside of the earth. And that's what it was like. And so now I understand what the astronauts were talking about because it's an amazing experience. It's a mind-blowing experience. And now I'm just like, wow. And the thing about this whole thing is I just felt totally expanded. I felt totally safe and warm. And I was still myself, very much myself, but it was like I was also blended into all that is all is the best way to describe it. And I thought this was kind of the end. And I was just kind of waiting to see what was going to happen and if I was actually going to be able to make it back into my body. And all of a sudden, the same thing happened again. It was like whoosh, and I went up again. And all of a sudden, I find myself basically out in the middle of the universe because there's all these spiral. I'm looking at all these spiral galaxies, including what I learned later was our own Milky Way galaxy because it's also a spiral galaxy. And I was just like, at this point now, I'm blown away. And I'm just like, now I'm like, what's next? And I'm looking around in awe and wonder. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is incredible. And again, felt perfectly safe, no fear, no nothing. And I thought, wow, what's the next stage? And just literally, as I thought about that, all of a sudden, it was like whoosh, and I went back and in light speed, and I was just boom, thrown right back into my body. And I described this in a couple ways, but my favorite one is it was like taking an elephant and trying to stuff it into a Coke bottle. That's exactly what it felt like. Because my energy, because being out of my body was so expanded, it took me a good, I would say at least a good 2 or 3 days after that to feel comfortable again in my body because I literally felt like I was squished into this tiny, tiny place. So that totally and utterly changed my view on
You think?
yeah, exactly. What was possible and what we were made of and how things worked and everything. And if you want to know the 3D contextual side of the story, what actually happened was that moment that I was literally sucked or pushed back into my body. One of the climbing instructors had gotten nervous that I was too close to the edge of the cliff, and he had literally grabbed the back of my pants and pulled me back. So when he physically did that in the 3D world, that's when all my energy came pummeling back down into my body. So that was the trigger for that. Now, I'm convinced that the trigger for me leaving my body in the first place, because of course, I did after that, I did a lot of thinking and researching and learning over the years. And the trigger was the awesomeness and the beauty of nature and me connecting with that in a really deep, authentic way. And that was what had me doing this spontaneous out of body experience. So it was pretty cool.
That is very cool. So you figure that I was thinking, oh, maybe it was a near-death experience because you were so close to the edge, but doesn't sound like it. So it sounds more like your vibration was so high from just being there
Yeah.
and experiencing the nature and everything that, yeah, that you just
Yeah, it
it
was
couldn't contain you. Your body couldn't contain.
no. And I actually heard another story and I researched it really well because right from when I heard the story, I didn't believe it. There's actually a thing that's called what do they call it? Climbers euphoria. Okay. And it's a phenomenon, it's a real thing where people who are in high places, climbing mostly, um, go into this kind of altered mind state of euphoria. And they start thinking literally like they can walk on air and they could just walk off the cliff or they could fly and all this stuff. But there's a whole bunch of things around it. This is a real mental condition,
Mhm.
but that is not what happened.
Right,
Okay.
right,
There is no points of reference at all to that experience to what I experienced.
right,
So as soon as I read about that, I just went, no, that's definitely not what happened.
right. Did you talk to anyone about it right after? Did you tell
Oh
them?
no.
Yeah,
No. I didn't talk to anybody. Actually, I I'm trying to think about. Honestly, I can't remember. I think that the first time I actually talked about it when I was an adult, like old adult, not old adult, middle age, so we say. When I started really digging into my spirituality is probably the first time that I actually talked about it. I've been talking about it a lot the last couple of years. Everybody, as soon as they hear about that, say, "Oh, can we talk about that?"
for
Yeah, it's very
sure.
interesting.
So okay, so you didn't really talk about it, but you were interested, of course, in finding out more. How did you come to realize that you had actual psychic abilities, and do you think those came after the experience, or do you think you had them before?
I think I had I think I was, I don't think, I know I was born with the gifts. As everybody, like, this is what people don't understand. Everybody is psychic, okay, to some degree. It's just like I say, it's like basketball. Everybody can play basketball. Some people are just better at it.
I'm not so sure.
No, you can.
Okay.
Physically, you can. But like I said, there's people who are probably a lot better at it. Also, there's people who are born with natural ability, and then there's people who practice really hard and become, an expert in something or very, very good at it. So there's those two things. I think I was born with the gifts, and it just kind of developed over time. And there was a lot of incidents. Because what people don't realize is there's the incident like that I had on the cliff that was very transcendental, shall we say, but also trauma often triggers people. And I had tons of trauma in my life as a child and in my young adulthood and my teenagehood. And so I think all along the way, things were triggering me and to be that connection with my gifts.
Exactly.
I'm also a medium, and that everybody is not a medium. Okay. There's sort of what am I going to call it? A line of thinking now, because there's a lot of people out there claiming that they can make you a medium, which is absolute garbage. Okay. Because mediumship, like I said, everybody is born psychic, and it just depends to what degree and how much you develop it. But mediumship is a very separate gift, and or it has been. Now the new children might be an exception, but us older folks, okay, you either have the gift or you don't. Somebody can help you build your gift and can help you train yourself to be better at it, but nobody can make you a medium if you are not already have that gift. And there's a whole bunch of very famous mediums that agree with that opinion. So I say
You're
that
not
very,
alone.
I'm not alone. Okay. So but that's different. But that experience on the cliff, I actually haven't thought about it this way before. See, I always learn something new. Um, because what that experience, one of the things that I got out of that experience was knowing that we don't die. Like there's something in us that goes on forever. Okay. Because I went out of my body and into space and all over the place, and I didn't die. Okay. So I knew. So that is, I think, a foundation too that helped me when I started getting into my mediumship work. Because the reason I did is because I wanted to help people who were grieving. I wanted to help people to know that, we're not just the meat suits. Um, there's something in us that does go on forever. And, death is just what we think of as death is simply another transition into a different form. So that helped with that side of my work as well. And I really like that because it helps people grieving. And I've had a lot of personal experience. I went through my partner died suddenly about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Yeah. And going through that whole process myself was it was very traumatic for me because there was a bunch of things that happened in the hospital that should have never happened, but we're not even going to go into that story.
Mm.
It's too complicated. And so it taught me a lot of lessons, and it taught me about it reinforced the fact that we are not our bodies, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not humans having a spiritual experience.
Right.
And if there was ever any doubt in my mind, that whole experience with Tim passing away suddenly and all the things that happened in and around that, just showed me that that's not the case.
Exactly.
And that particular event both catalyzed me getting into building my own practice of my spiritual counseling practice and my mediumship. So that was how that happened.
Okay. So you didn't, go on a sort of normal route of like getting a job in accounting or something, you did?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Oh my God. I worked in corporate for 30 years.
Oh, okay.
I was in advertising and marketing. I worked for, well, it used to be called Southern. It's not, it's changed names so many times. I worked for the Sun and the chain of newspapers that the Sun and the Province are part of. I worked with the Sun and the Province for probably 25 years. And I also worked at the Edmonton Journal for about 5 or 6 years before I moved out to BC. So yes, I had a very very traditional, if not very staunchly corporate job for a very long time, and in sales and direct sales too. So there's not a whole lot of spirituality going on in
Mhm.
direct sales. I can tell you that right now.
So what made you
Yeah.
decide to pivot?
Well, it was a whole bunch of things. You probably most people know that around 10 years ago, the newspaper business really started to go into the toilet big time.
True.
And they started cutting back staff, and the kind of writing was on the wall, and the environment just became extremely toxic, and they started offering buyouts, and I was ready to be gone anyway because of
Hmm.
the environment, and I just said, give me my check and I'm out of here. And I did it. I had no plan. I didn't know what I was doing. I had nothing. Didn't have anything planned. I just said, give me my check and I'm out of here. So that was interesting. Didn't quite work out the way I thought. And I had some money and some coin in my jeans, so I decided I was going to take about 6 months off or so, and then start looking for a job. So this happened in the middle of, what was it, 2023. Yeah, it was right in June because it was right near my birthday. It was 2013, middle of 2013, that I left my job and said, and decided to take about 6 months off, and I did that, and then I started looking for a new job at the very beginning of 2014, I should say. Got some surprises in that area, but the biggest surprise came was with Tim, with my partner. He all of a sudden, we thought he just had a bad cold. He had a chest cold, and well, then I started getting twinges. I had a vision when we walked into the emergency that he was never going to be walking out the door again, and that's exactly what happened because he had a heart attack. He didn't die from the heart attack. He died from complications of a blood disease, a genetic blood disease that he already had, that he inherited from his mother. So it's a very
Oh
convoluted
my
story.
gosh.
But he was basically brain dead within probably 4 to 5 hours after we walked into the hospital. So that was very sudden. So that just, it was like it was bang, 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 bang. It was all these traumas. Because
Traumas.
even if you leave a 30-year career of your own choosing, I tell you, it's not exactly low on the trauma scale.
For
So it
sure.
was, yeah, and in between there, I had found out that there was a huge ageism going on at that point. I was like 52. And at that point, I actually had a really good recruiter who was actually honest with me, and because they're not supposed to tell you these kinds of things, okay? And she just told me, she said, Laura, all my clients, which are her clients, are the hirers, have told me they don't even want to see anybody over the age of 45. And I was like, what? So so
Yeah.
basically, I found myself in it because when I left, I thought I would have, with all my experience and blah, 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 I thought I would have no problem finding another job. And of course, I got that rude awakening at that point. So there was like three bombs, it was like three atomic bombs went off in a row, which sent me on a healing journey for the next probably, well, intensely for the next 6 to 8 months, but that healing journey really lasted about 5 years.
Right. And did you get some help with that, or was it kind of
Oh
like
yes,
on
I
your
went
own?
on. I did all kinds of alternative things. I went to John of God in Brazil. It's a healing center in Brazil. He's a trance channeler. Before the messy things got started there. And then I went and when I was there, I was led to another, I went into a deep 3 week long ayahuasca journey in Peru in the jungle. Oh yeah.
Wow. A,
Oh
a
yeah.
while ago.
Yeah. It was pretty intense. Oh yeah. No, this was before ayahuasca really became a thing.
Yeah.
It's a bit dangerous now, actually, because it's become a thing. So when anything becomes a thing, it becomes all about the money, and that becomes dangerous. Um,
True enough.
But and what else did I do? Oh yes, and then I thought, okay, what am I going to do with my life, basically? And then I had gotten into yoga. That was part of my healing journey. I had started doing yoga intensely, which was really great for me, by the way. And I decided that I was going to be a yoga instructor. That was going to be my new thing. So off I go. I did a month-long intensive in Costa Rica, and it was fabulous. And I learned a lot, but then I totally got the message. Actually, I wasn't even quite finished my training before I got the message clearly that I was not meant to be a yoga practitioner. It was for my own healing. Like there's so many things that we get drawn into. This happens to a lot of people that they're not supposed to be a practitioner of, they're not supposed to teach it. They're all there's a lot of things we get drawn to primarily for as a healing experience for ourselves. And that was what yoga was all about for me. And then I had a mission because Tim lived for 20 years in Hawaii, and Hawaii was his second love, maybe even his first love. But I wanted to take his ashes to back to Hawaii. So of course, Laura's still on her healing journey. So there was a big yoga convention thing there in at the same time. So I went and did that for a couple of weeks whilst I was doing the ceremony and everything with Tim's ashes. So yeah, it was pretty wild.
It's fascinating. So you said you got the message that you weren't to be an instructor. It was just for your
Yeah.
healing. How did that come?
That's difficult to explain because it's easier to explain how I get messages for others than it is to explain how I get messages for myself. Probably the best way to say it is just a deep knowing. It's a really, really profound intuition that you just know that something is for you or something isn't for me, you know? And it's just like it wasn't the fact that yoga is still a really big part of my life. 12, 11, or 12 years later, whatever it is. But and I'm very grateful for that, by the way. I had a huge amount, not only of emotional and mental healing, but I had a huge amount of physical healing because I was pretty rough on my body.
Well, all that mountain climbing.
Well, I was in several severe, well, the first one which almost killed me. I was in I had a when I was 29, I had all these exit points early on. Like I
Hmm.
don't think I when I before I came in, everybody does this. You plan exit points throughout your lifetime. And between the time when I was, I don't know, 12 and 30, I had a whole whack of them lined up. Actually, no, it was actually about 35. It was probably about 12 to 15 to 35. I had a lot of exit points plotted out, and I had to make sure that I hit everyone. So I had a lot of physical damage to my body, which is I had a huge amount of healing through because I was doing therapeutic yoga primarily, like real therapeutic yoga, which is hard to find. I was just lucky enough to find a couple of instructors here in Maple Ridge who that was their specialty.
Awesome.
So
You mentioned the exit points.
yeah.
So do you think that you chose all those exit points beforehand, as we all do?
Mhm.
Do we choose which ones are going to be the actual exit point, or are these
No, they're opportunities. Like this is what a lot of people don't understand. Like we plan everything out before we come in, but nothing's written in stone. Like you can change your mind at anything. It's just the opportunity. If you really decide that you want to leave, that's where you can leave. And sometimes I can tell you the intervention story on that big accident. It's actually an angel story if you want to hear it. And
sure?
actually um, okay, this is in Edmonton, okay? And if you know anything about Edmonton, the Journal building was up on the hill by the Shadow Lacombe Hotel, and there was this big, big, big hill down into the valley, in the river valley, and then up the other side of the river valley. Okay, because the river goes right through Edmonton. Okay.
Mhm.
So I was driving. Oh no, I got to start at the right place. I was driving because otherwise it won't make sense. And this was in Alberta just after the seatbelt law came in. Okay. And you have to remember, I'm like in my early 20s, very early 20s. Okay. And I'm like, there's no way I'm wearing a seatbelt. It's too confining. It wrinkles my clothes.
Of
I'm
course.
not wearing a seatbelt. Like I'm, typical 20 something. And so I refused to wear my seatbelt. So about 2 to 3 days before the accident happened, where I got so severely injured, I was stopped by this cop, and it was a very unusual police officer. Okay. And because usually what they do is they just want to give you your ticket. They write out your ticket and they want you out of their hair as fast as they possibly can. Well, he writes me a ticket. And I tell you, it was a big ticket. I think in those days I think it was $200 or something. It was like really steep. And you have to remember, this is back in like 81 or
Yeah,
82.
that's like
Like
a
it's a
thousand
lot.
now. Yeah.
It's a lot of money. It got my attention. I was like, what? Right? And the weird thing about this guy, he had this presence about him, this police officer, he had this presence about him. And he stood there and he lectured me. I'm not kidding you, for 15 minutes. Okay, which is a lifetime in police terms. Okay. And he lectured me on, such a wonderful young woman like you got to, he did the whole 9 yards about protecting myself, and it could save your life someday. Okay. He repeated that phrase probably at least 3 or 4 times during that 15 minutes. Okay. It might have not been 15 minutes, but it was at least 10, which is even then is out. He was talking to me. It was like I was his daughter. Okay. Which is the other weird part. He was speaking to me like a daughter, like a father berating his daughter for being unsafe. That's what the conversation was, which is really weird. So anyway, 2 or 3 days after that, I'm driving down this very, very steep hill from the office. And at the bottom, there is a road that goes cut straight across 90 degrees. And all there is there is a yield sign. Okay. So having gone up and down this hill many, many times, I always slowed down as I got to the bottom of the hill, took my foot off the gas, because people would blow through that yield sign all the time. I don't know why it wasn't a stop sign, but it wasn't. Anyway, I saw another car there, and I saw there was a girl in it, and I'm waiting to see if she's going to stop because I'm coming. And so she stops, and I thought, okay, great. So I put my foot back on the gas. I just get to the intersection. She literally T-bones me in the intersection. Okay.
No.
Oh, yes. But in front of me, like right in front of me. So literally, I hit her broadside because she cuts like right in front of me, right when I'm in the middle of the intersection. So if you know anything about physics, I'm not going to go into explanation. Just take my word for it. T-boning somebody like that is like running full tilt into a brick wall. That's the force that it comes. Okay. So, needless to say, we rode off both cars. She's outside the car. She hasn't got a scratch on her, not a scratch on her. I'm sitting in my car with practically my engine in my lap, my knee all the way through the dashboard, and very, very injured.
Did you have your seatbelt
I
on?
had my seatbelt on.
Okay. Just checking.
So, I had my seatbelt on. So then another cop, not the same cop, another cop comes up, and he is talking to me and everything, and he goes, "Oh my God, Miss, you are so," this is when they used to call us Miss, "you are so lucky that you had your seatbelt on." He said, "If you hadn't had your seatbelt on," and he points over the hood of my car and over her car, and he goes, "we would be scraping you off the pavement." with shovels on the other side. He said, if you hadn't had your seatbelt on.
My goodness, it saved your
Exactly.
life, didn't
Exactly.
it?
It did. And there's more to the story, but that's the important part.
That's
But
Earth
I will have
Angel.
to tell you one more thing
Hmm.
because this is the kicker. When this police officer that was at the accident, he grabbed my purse and because I was taken away on a backboard with a head brace and the whole a neck brace and the whole 9 yards. He followed us the ambulance to the hospital and he comes into the room and I've already realized that this first police officer saved my life by making me put my seatbelt on. Okay.
Right.
So I said to him, I'm lying there and they're doing examining. I don't know, we were waiting for something. I think we were waiting for a CT or something. And I said, I asked him if he could do something for me. And I said, I need you to say thank you to this police officer. I told him a quickie version of the story. And he goes, well, what's his badge number? And I said, I don't know what his badge number is. And he goes, do you know what, did he give you a name, officer something or something? And I said, no. And he goes, well, what did he look like? And I described this man to a T because he was a very unique looking man. Okay. Very, very handsome, very big, tall, and very well built. And he just looks at me. he goes, he goes, he goes, sweetheart. I love the good old days. He goes, sweetheart, I've been in this detachment because there's an area for the detachment. He said, almost 20 years. He says, there's nobody like that because he's very distinctive looking. Like you can't miss this man, right? And he goes, there's nobody like that in our detachment. And I said, well, couldn't he be from some other detachment? And he goes, no. We said he couldn't give you a ticket. If he wasn't from our traffic detachment, he wouldn't be giving you a ticket. And I just said, well, who was he? And he goes, I don't know.
Interesting. Quite the coincidence.
Oh no,
Not.
I was convinced then, and I am still convinced to this day that that was one of my angels.
That's an angel for sure.
Yeah, that was an
Yeah.
angel.
Yeah.
Because I was really wanting to thank this officer, and I even took it further and I did some more investigations, and of course, nobody knew who this man was.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's so cool. So, so you said that that you so, okay, so after that, among other things, all these things are happening and they're sort of congealing into you deciding to, plus not having a job and whatnot, to open your business, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
And it was
we just did a leap of about 30
we
years.
left a few years,
Yeah,
but
we left a few years.
and it was, but you said it was primarily to help people who were grieving, correct? So,
Well, that was part of it.
mhm.
That was one of my missions. My real mission was to help people live their best life, to really find out who they were, and it still is, and what they were meant to do. Because when I started this, I went, this is what I was meant to do. Because I actually did it for a little bit for a while, hit and miss on the side. I would do readings for people,
Mm.
okay, um, before I quit my job, my day job. Okay. So after all of this, I was just absolutely convinced that spirit was leading me through all these different events to having this practice and helping people because I have so many wild um, life experiences that I can reach people on a whole different level. Because I've always said, like I've had clients tell me that they got more out of having one session, spending an hour with me than they'd gotten out of 2 or 3 years of conventional therapy or
Wow.
counseling. Okay.
Mhm.
So it really because it's different. You connect differently with somebody when I can look into somebody's eyes and say, I know exactly how you feel because I've been there. Okay. That is a way different energy than somebody who has simply had book learning and that type of thing. Now, I'm not poo-pooing that. It has its uses, but I'll tell you, most of the time, that traditional therapy, all the traditional therapies, really they're dealing more with symptoms. They're band-aiding symptoms. And this is what I love, and I always tell people what I love about working with spirit, because spirit goes to the root cause, okay? And they help you heal that root cause, which is what makes these incredible changes in people's lives. And the wonderful thing about working with spirit is a lot of times the root causes aren't even in this particular lifetime. Okay, they're in previous lifetimes that we've carried these things forward and they have been somehow triggered, because there's all different kinds of triggers that can happen, to triggered in this lifetime. So even if you tried to heal that in this lifetime and you did all these things, if you haven't at least acknowledged and cleaned up what happened in the past life, you're not going to be fully healed. Again, you're going to be dealing with symptoms. You're going to be, putting band-aids on things. And you might feel better for a while because there's a lot of therapies out there. And I just, they make people feel better for a while, for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, maybe on the outside a year. And then all of a sudden you see these people, and oftentimes they're back where they started from. Or the really sad thing that I see is often they end up worse off than they were in the beginning. Okay? Because what ends up happening with these putting all these band-aids on things, it shoves the energy down, okay? And it's corrosive, okay? So when this band-aiding wears off, uh, often people find themselves in a worse situation than they were in the beginning, and which is really sad. And not any closer to really realizing how to make their life work, or what they were meant to do, or who they really are. Because let's face it, we come into this, I've been shown this over and over again with myself and with all clients. We plan out on the other side who we're going to be. We plan out what we're going to do, basically, who we have contracts with, who we're going to facilitate our lessons, all that stuff. And I just totally lost my train of thought.
Well,
As
I
I,
agree with you. We
I don't know
plan
where it's going with that.
everything out. Um, well, what I was going to ask you was what do people come to you for then? What's the symptom? What are the symptoms that you can recognize?
Well,
Uh,
it's not really, it's not, well, sometimes it is things that are symptomatic, but really what it is challenges and confusion, and and they want clarity. And a big part of what a lot of people want too is confirmation. Like Spirit has always told me that they do not want us to become dependent on them. Okay. They are here to help us really deeply connect with our own knowing, with our own intuition, with our own guidance. Okay, that's the end game. So by helping us gain clarity and direction and giving us confirmation, because a lot of times we pick up on stuff, we'll have our own intuition and we'll just go, oh, that's just wishful thinking, or oh, that's just my imagination. Okay, instead of accepting that that's true guidance and that we should be following it. So people come to me for all different, very, very unique reasons. But they all have there's similar themes. It could be relationship issues, whether it's family, romantic, business, partners, all kinds of relationship issues. People come to me with personal issues. They don't understand why they're feeling some way, or they're blocked in some way. They can't understand how to move forward in some way in their life, or with their emotions, or with something that's going on with them. People come to me who want to engage in raising their vibration. How do I get to the next level? How do I get clear on what my purpose is, or what the plan is that I came in for my life. So there's very, very many different things. Now that's just on the spiritual counseling side. Of course, on the mediumship side, everybody is looking for number one, the biggest thing that people are looking for is confirmation that their loved one, whoever that might be, okay, could be a friend, a family member, whatever, that their person is okay. That's the biggest thing. They want to know that their person's okay and the person didn't suffer. Uh, but what the kind of mediumship that I practice is not like you'll see a lot. There's a lot of what's called evidentiary mediums around, and they focus in on proving that there's life after death. Okay. And they give a lot of details and things like that to show people that life goes on. Okay. Uh, I just say life goes on. If you don't really believe that, then, I'm not here to convince people of that. What I've been shown over and over again is I'm here to deliver messages of love and encouragement and things that people need to know to make their lives work. So it dovetails with my counseling practice. So that's what I do. I give people the messages that other people on the other side need to know. Okay. I'll give you an example. This is a very dramatic. I was looking for the right word. This is a dramatic one. There was a young man who was on the other side, and his family was in the group that I was working with. And they were told by the police because of the circumstances around, he was in a single, not a single car, but a single motorcycle accident. Because of the situation and the evidence around this accident, the police the police said they ruled it a suicide, is what they did. Okay. And the reason why, and I can see why this happened, there was no skid marks, there was no indication that he tried to veer off or do anything, and he drove straight into a max-sized tree and he was killed, unfortunately. And this proclamation, I'm going to call it, by the police and the courts devastated this family. Okay. It put one of his younger brothers, on the verge of suicide. One of
Gosh.
his friends, his best friend, put him on the verge of suicide, and just crushed this entire family and all his friends. And it was really bad. And this is the problem with young people too. When there's a suicide, it's contagious. Okay. Especially with young males. Um, he was so desperate to come through because he wanted to tell them the truth, because it wasn't the truth. Okay. The police were and the court were mistaken. What actually happened, and he knew better, he came in and he took responsibility for causing his own death, but said emphatically that he did not commit suicide. Because what had really happened is he had a really bad cold. He had taken a bunch of over-the-counter medications for cold medications. And this is a warning to a lot of people, okay? And he knew he probably shouldn't be driving his bike home that night, but he did it anyway, okay? And what actually happened is, because of all this cold medication, he fell asleep. He literally fell asleep at the wheel, okay? And this is why there was no skid marks, there was no evasive action, there was nothing. He literally drove off the road because he was asleep on his bike. I'm surprised he actually didn't fall off his bike, but he didn't. And he drove right into this tree, and unfortunately he was killed. Okay. So this happens so often when there is a suspicion of suicide or that's ruled suicide, and they want to come in, and it's not, they want to come in and clear the air, because that has such an impact on everybody around them. When you say that somebody's taken their own life, like the family was absolutely, in one way, they were absolutely sure that he didn't because of the way he was. But of course, then people also put all these things into people's minds. And so then they start believing it, right? Because
Right.
There a lot of times people do commit suicide and nobody has a clue that they were in that state of mind, okay? But this was not one of those cases.
Hmm.
So this is another thing that I love about doing the mediumship work because it was a massive healing for his whole family and his friends and everybody, and it just threw everything in a totally different light. And he was just over the moon because finally everybody knew what really happened. So it was wonderful. It's such a To deliver messages like that is such an incredible privilege, and I can't even explain the feelings that brings up doing something like that because you're helping so many people, and that's just one kind of more dramatic example, but there's lots of those examples where people just find so much peace and healing by receiving messages from their loved ones on the other
Hmm.
side. So I love doing that work as well.
That's beautiful. That is, yeah, that must have really been something just to be able to be the conduit for that
Mhm.
message coming through. That's beautiful. Um, just, you talked about and I'm not going to keep you much longer. You talked about that spirit, which I guess could be guides or angels or whatever.
When I speak of spirit, it's an all-encompassing. It's your
Yeah,
guides, your spirit, your angels, source,
yeah. Spirit,
everything.
spirit. Okay. What they want is for us to not depend on them. And I never really heard it put that way before. But that's very interesting. And to use our own intuition. So, yeah, I could see that. So, how do we develop our own intuition in a nutshell? Or, what are a couple things that we can do?
Well, probably the how you build that is by building a very, very deep connection with yourself. And one of the best ways that I always talk about, because it's the best way to do a whole bunch of things at the same time, is meditation.
Hmm.
Meditation, meditation, meditation. A real practice, okay? A real practice is not a couple of hours every 2 or 3 times a week, okay? A practice is every day. That's why it's called a practice. But there's three mistakes or myths about meditation. One is it's got to be hours and hours, okay? 20, 30 minutes that's what I suggest to my clients. It's perfect. As long as you're doing on a consistent basis, because that is the other thing about meditation. The other myth is you can't this couple times a week or something. No. Okay. It's the consistency because it's cumulative. That's where you get the real benefit from meditation is that cumulative type. Okay.
Hmm.
That the other thing is that you have to be seated or you have to be sitting in the lotus position. Okay. You wouldn't believe how many people this turns off meditating.
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
Number one, it's not true. Okay. You don't have to. If you're not comfortable, and I was never comfortable, even with all my yoga, because flexibility was A, never my thing to begin with, and B, after having so many physical injuries, sitting like that is not a comfortable place for me. Okay. The best place for me to totally relax my body is lying down. So I lie down. Okay. I basically get up, do my thing, come back, go back to bed, do my meditation, and that's how I start my day. Okay. So those are really the big three. And you can do any meditation, kind of meditation you like. For most people, I recommend guided meditation because it's really easy for people who are either new to meditation or who have trouble doing classical silent meditation. Okay. If that's your thing, though, go for it. Like some people can really get into some of the classic silent meditation modalities. It never was good for me. I always did better with guided meditation, so that's what I do.
And what's the benefit? I mean, to me, one of the big benefits of meditation is calming the nervous system. kind of on a regular basis. So
Yeah,
you're at an even keel more often than you're, like
well,
this.
it calms your nervous system. It quiets your mind. It doesn't stop you from thinking. It just keeps that monkey mind to a dull roar.
Hmm.
Okay. It allows you to connect with your body. This is a big part of it. Okay. This is why I love yoga also in terms of spirituality, because people think spirituality is all about being out of your body. And we started with that example, and now I'm regretting
Yeah.
it. It's not. It's actually for us here, we need to be connected to our vessel. Okay. That's the way, because that is a huge way that spirit gives us messages through our bodies. And if we're not connected, like even when I'm doing a session with somebody, a huge amount of information comes through sensations in my body.
Hmm.
So if you're not connected to your body, you're not connected to your guidance. Okay. I keep telling people this. The reason I love meditation is it covers all four pillars at the same time. Okay. Spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, all at the same time.
Right.
Okay. And it's incredible. So it's really about that connection, because a lot of people think we just reach up to spirit. What we actually have to do is go in and then up. And it's the mistake that people make. And if you keep your body out of the equation, you're going to have a really hard time raising your vibration. That's the other side of the equation as well, is we really are here on a mission. Ascension is not about leaving the body or leaving the planet. Okay, there's this incredible myth that so many people out there have.
Hmm.
Ascension is raising the vibration of your body and your physical body and your energy bodies to the highest vibration possible. Okay. As long as we're on this planet, we will be in some form of physicality. It will be probably in the future much lighter, much more towards the light body than we are now, because we're still pretty dense in terms of, like, if we are comparing to a light body, we're still pretty dense. Okay. But that has nothing to do with leaving our body or leaving the planet. Okay.
Right.
That's a
Uh,
whole other topic. That
yeah.
first thing is we'd have to do uh 2.0 discussion to get
Well,
into
we
that
could do that. We can do
one.
that. Because I was going to ask you about this ascension, this whole ascension thing,
Yeah.
and 3D to 5D and whatnot, and what is it? Is it real, or is it just more people learning about spirituality?
Okay, I'll give you like I said, this is a long conversation, this whole
Okay.
area.
Well, we'll
I'm
we'll
gonna give I'm gonna give you
give me the nutshell.
the nutshell, okay? When it comes to ascension and all this talk about different earths and the new earth, and it depends on who you're talking to, how they will phrase it, okay?
Hmm.
We You have to understand the multi-universe or the multi-dimensionality construct. Okay. Even now, we are living, there's multiple Earths. Okay. And they're all nested into the same space, like those Russian dolls or those Ukrainian dolls. Okay. The only thing that really separates them is the vibration. Okay. See, all of it's like a radio station. All those different Earths are on different vibrational levels. They're like different channels on a radio. Okay. And where you're living, which Earth you're living on, is determined by what your own vibration is. So, yes, we will be, in that sense, some of us will be ascending to a different Earth. Okay. But it's still here. It's just a different vibration. Okay. We won't notice anything except if you're sensitive to energy or the different things that are going on. Okay. And this isn't about a class system or somebody's better than somebody else or anything like that. These are all decisions that are made primarily by your higher self. And they're not really conscious in here. But to some people, probably more so than not. But some people will simply it's all about making a choice. Some people will decide to stay on this 3D Earth because they feel that they can advance their soul more quickly on this 3D Earth. Okay. Then there'll be some of us that decide, no, we want to go to the 7D or the 12D, but we have to be a vibrational match in order to shift into that reality. So there's a whole bunch of realities. Okay.
Hmm.
Right now, I love the way science keeps proving all these old spiritual things. Right now, the new physics has proven that there's up to 13 universes, okay, all nested in with each other, okay? But I've been told of course, there's a lot more than that. But at least now they're admitting that this whole thing is true. Okay, so they've proven it scientifically. So that's the quickie version. So
Okay.
that's really what ascension means. It's moving from one vibrational level to another and being of a vibrational match to the next um earth. Okay. So, but like I said, some people will stay, some people will go. There might be even people that move to a higher octave earth if they've built up their vibration that they can handle that.
Wow. So it's not something you can aspire to consciously?
Oh, yes, you can, because there's a lot of things that you can do to raise your vibration. Meditation, working on your physical body, what you eat, what you do, what you take in. I can guarantee you, if you're sitting there watching Fox News every night, it's not doing a whole lot for your vibration, okay?
Right.
It's really about purifying, like the yogis did. That's how it doesn't mean you have to sequester yourself in a monastery, but it does mean that you have to do all these different things to elevate your own vibration. And there's a lot of things that we can do.
That's
And a big
awesome.
part of it is just intention. A big
Yeah.
part of it is making the choice. Like we keep talking about choice because it really is. This is the only planet of free will. And that's why there's so many beings coming to watch what's going on here,
Hmm.
because I keep getting told, and there's all kinds of channelers and everybody else who talks about this thing, so it's not like I'm alone, um, that there's just so many different ways of doing this, and you don't have to be locked into this one. And there's going to be some events coming up too, some physical 3D events that are going to help. Then this is a big conversation, that are actually going to help us en masse to raise our vibration. But you see, everybody is still on different levels. There are some people that aren't even awake, that this particular energies that are coming in, this will help wake them up. And then there's people who have already been on the path and have been working on themselves, and that's going to shoot them up to another level, you see? So there's nothing about everybody's on the same level. And it's not because you're on a higher level, you're better. Okay. There's none of that hierarchical things. It's just where we've decided to go, what we've chosen to experience. But I can guarantee you, if you're present on this earth at this mountain time, you came in making the choice that you were going to be part of this incredible transition that the earth is going through. And I can tell you, a big part of that is happening within the next 5 years, and super happening within the next 2 years, by the way. This year and next year are going to be particularly interesting.
2025 and 2026.
Six, yes. And it's already started in case you hadn't noticed.
I think I have.
And this is why,
It's
this is
only
why,
February, but I think I have.
yeah, yeah. This is why it's so important to make your own choices and be working on your own development and staying grounded and filtering what is in your world and what isn't in your world. And when I say that, I mean everything. I mean what you allow in news, what you're reading, what you're listening to, the people that you are allowing into your life. Because I can't remember who said that. you're a composite of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking, I believe the person who said that was talking more from a psychological point of view, but it is super also true for your energetic level. So if you're hanging out with a bunch of people or in places where the energy is very low vibration, guess what? You're not going anywhere in a hurry. And I'm going to tell you, some of those places too are anywhere where people are intoxicated. Okay. Bars and stuff like that, big parties, uh, raves, all that kind of stuff is the worst possible place you can be because intoxicated people, it's split. I don't care whether it's drugs or whether it is alcohol. It splits open your energy body and all your junk spills out on anyone in within the vicinity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're intoxicated, your body's open. So guess what happens? All their garbage flows into you.
Yes.
Okay. This also has a huge sexual component. And again, that's a whole
I think
nother
we better set up
topic.
another
We better
meeting.
stop. We better just have a 2.0
I think so.
because that
Possibly
is
a
another
3.0.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, Laura, thank you so much for all this fantastic information. You've given me so much to
Pleasure.
think about. It's
I know it's
unbelievable.
mind-boggling.
It is. It is. And I'm shocked and in awe that you have all this information in your brain
I'm a
and in your
sponge. I just call myself the sponge.
yeah, yeah. And you can be so articulate about it at the same time.
I don't know how articulate I am
No,
sometimes.
I
Sometimes
think
I'm like
you
all over
are.
the place.
I think you are. Well, one last thing, what's the what's your message for us? What should we be doing? Meditation? Is that the best thing we can do right
Okay,
now?
I'm checking. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Ah, I love when we plan comes together. Okay, meditation, consciously controlling your environment, and all those things we talked about. Okay, people, incoming information, all those things are controlling your environment. And the other big one, which started this whole conversation, is spending as much time as you possibly can in nature. Okay, and the
Yes.
more wilderness, the nature, the better. But if the only thing that you can do is to go to a local park or something like that on a regular basis, it's better than nothing. Okay. But the more wild an environment is, when we talk about nature, the higher the vibration because the less polluted, literally polluted, energetically polluted it
Mm.
is. So if you can get out on some kind of a regular basis into as rugged or natural an area as possible, that is huge.
Beautiful
Okay.
and something that people can do.
And can do. And when I talk about an environment, the most important environment is your home. Okay. Because most people spend more time in their home and it will continue to be that way, by the way, and it's going to get increasingly more so. People are not going to want to be they're going to be self-isolating and will have nothing to do with the pandemic. Okay.
Mm.
So you want to raise the vibration of your home. And there's a whole bunch of easy stuff you can do. Water features, plants, salt lamps, crystals, music. There's all kinds of wonderful vibrational music. Except when I'm in session, I have high vibrational music playing constantly in the background
Yep.
when I'm home, constantly. And sometimes I'll actually even leave it on when I leave because it literally soaks into everything in your environment.
Sure.
So those 3 things, if you really consciously work on those 3 things, meditation, your environment, and being in nature, you're well on your way. And anything that gets you, this is the fourth, okay? They always like to have the 4 pillars. The fourth one is getting in touch with your body. Okay. Now there's multiple ways that you can do this. I'll make some quickie suggestions. One, of course, is my favorite is yoga. Okay. If you don't get into yoga, no big deal. Things like martial arts, Tai Chi, if you don't want to do traditional combative martial arts, Qigong, um, breath work is wonderful. Okay. Being in the water. Okay. Ocean, anything moving, okay, has a higher vibration. And salt water has its own things. And if you can't be, you can still have Epsom salts baths. You can put essential
Mhm.
oils in it. You can do all those things. So though water is, that's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
Water is a miraculous thing. We don't even have a clue what water really is.
It's so powerful.
I've actually heard it described now, and I can't remember the gal's name. And she has some, I love the rationale, and I don't remember the whole, I gotta find out more about this. This is something I just heard about. Anyway, she equates water with God
Hmm.
energy.
Hmm.
And I totally believe this. And we're finding out that emotions affect water. There's all that Japanese scientist who had all those crystals and everything. It was amazing that actually emotions, even just emotions written on a test tube, can change the composition of water. Water is an amazing thing. This is another thing. They're going to give you the fifth one, okay? High quality water, okay?
Hmm.
And I am not talking about bottled water, okay? Bottled water is sometimes worse than the crap that comes out of the tap. And you shouldn't be drinking tap water. You should be having the best and easiest and cheapest way is to have some kind of a gravity filter, a ProPure or a Berkey or something along that line that's a gravity filter for water. And that should be your drinking water, your cooking water, very important.
Hmm.
And if you really want to get, you should brush your teeth with it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Uh,
Gravity filter. Okay.
Yeah. And I have one that sits on my counter, and it's also a great tool. Like if something happens to the water, if you've got I've got a 5 gallon one, you might as well buy a big one if you're going to buy one. And, if anything, all kinds of things can happen with water, water issues. And you've
Hmm.
always got the water. And literally, if something happened with the water, with mine, I could go out and I could literally scoop up pond water and I could put it through that filter and it would be drinkable.
Awesome.
So there you
Laura,
go.
I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, we better go.
I'm
I
going to
have
put
to.
it in the show notes how people can get in touch with you. Um, email or your website or
Yeah, the website is just www dot spirit speaks to the number me dot
uh-huh.
me. And best way actually is to, if you want to have questions or you want to book a session, best way is email. And it's just Laura Hoorweg at gmail.com.
Awesome.
And you're going to put all my
I'm going to put it all
LinkedIn
in
and
the
Instagram and all that
all
jazz.
that stuff, all the good stuff. Okay. Laura,
All that stuff.
thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. It's
Thank
been
you so much
fascinating.
fun.
And we will do it again, okay?
Okay,
All
sounds like a
right.
plan.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.